Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to another episode of Palette Roulette, in which I let an app choose a palette for me to use the entire week, and I come back to you and give you my opinions of the palette. Thank you all for joining me today. For those of you who are new here, my name is Donna, and for those of you not new, thank you so much for continuing to come back and support my channel. I appreciate all of you so very much. Last week in our Palette Roulette episode 66, I pulled the Too Faced Gingerbread Extra Spicy palette. This is a limited edition palette that was released for the holiday collection of the makeup brand Too Faced. This palette isn't for sale anymore, so it was hard for me to find like a star rating, but I do know that on JCPenney's, who is currently selling it for like $29, it is 4.6 stars. I couldn't find any other star ratings on it, but this originally was a $49 palette. Like I said, it was limited edition for the makeup brand Too Faced for their holiday collection of last year, so 2019. Currently, like I said, you can purchase it on JCPenney's, who has it for $29.50. I did pick mine up at TJ Maxx. I think it was like $16, maybe $18, maybe $29. I can't remember, honestly, and I know that the box is probably here somewhere, but I don't remember what it cost me. This palette is not unlike most other Too Faced palettes. It does have like a tin kind of exterior to it. It does have a really cutesy, makes you think of, you know, children packaging, and it is like raised packaging. There's all of these guys here are raised on it. On the back, it has almost the same motif. It does tell you to turn up the heat with this gingerbread palette, baking with warm, sexy, smoldering shades. Achieve rich and spicy daytime looks, piping hot nighttime looks, and everything in between, with 18 shades that smell like yummy gingerbread cookies. I think it smells more like vanilla, if I'm being honest. It does have a little bit of a smell to it, but it's not like overpowering. I know that I have the peach palette, and I could smell peaches pretty much from the time I got it out of the box that it was mailed to me in. I don't feel that way about this palette. I don't feel like it's overwhelmingly scented like a lot of other Too Faced items are. When you open up the palette, which it doesn't really latch super great, like it's got a magnetic closure, but it's a pretty weak magnetic closure, if I'm being honest. This is what the palette looks like on the inside, with the die cut gingerbread's little tiny mirror, honestly, and then these are the shadows in the palette. There are 3 rows of 6, so you do have 18 shades. Those 18 shades are 0.3 ounces in each pan, or 12.19 grams, and there are 10 mattes and 8 shimmers. The 8 shimmers are this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. I know for sure. I'm not sure what the other shimmer is, if I'm being honest with you, because that was only 7, unless they are counting like this one as a shimmer, which is more of a matte with glitter in it. It's not really a shimmer. So I only count 7 unless they're counting that one. Most of the mattes are pretty typical for Too Faced. They are pretty silky. They're smooth, they blend really well, but they also aren't fully opaque. You do have to build them up quite a bit. They do sheer out. Yeah, there's that. Most of the shimmers in here are really stiff in the pan. I think that honestly that is the downfall of this palette. I wasn't super impressed with the shimmers, and typically Too Faced has some pretty bomb shimmers, so they were my least favorite. Even on the fingers, a lot of them just aren't spectacular. Like, I have 2 different shimmers in my eye look today, and while I do think that it's got a little bit of like shimmeresqueness to it, I think that I could probably get this same like appearance with this yellow in the palette that is a matte. I really feel like I could. with that being said, there are 2 different colors of shimmer on here and you just can't tell. The inner corner is an O for highlight. So that's that. That's also in my brow bone. So, like I said, even on the finger, the shimmers just weren't Too Faced. I do have the Too Faced Chocolate Gold, and that's all shimmers, except for, like, I think 4 mattes. I love those shimmers. These shimmers, not it. And because they're super, super densely pressed, they're super hard to pick up on a brush, and when you do go in to pick them up, they kind of create this, like, I don't know if you would call that like a divot. You know how, like, when you're playing, what is it, polo on horses and you whack something, it creates a divot in the ground. That's what I would say this looks like, really, and that's just from trying to get some color onto my brush. I would say these are best with a primer that is more of like a creamy primer, one that color can stick to but isn't too sticky and tacky, because if it goes onto a tacky base, it's just gonna sit there and lay there. These are also really super powdery, so there's a lot of fallout, and even with the shimmers there's a lot of fallout, which I find to be different for Too Faced. I don't think that I have a lot of problem with fallout in shimmers in, say, my peach palette or even my chocolate bar palette, but I did a lot with these ones, especially like this shimmer and this shimmer and this shimmer. And I'm sure, as you guys can see, most of the shades in here look very, very similar to each other. There's a lot of redundancy in this palette, and while I like it, I think it's a beautiful palette, I think that all of it is dupable with almost any other palette or any other single in my collection. I think I could dupe this out super, super easy. Even this one over here, which seems to be the, you know, piece de resistance in this palette. I don't think it's as unique as they want you to believe it is. Actually, I would say I even have this shade in another Too Faced palette, or have had that shade in another Too Faced palette. So I don't think it's as unique as they want you to believe it is. There is a lot of redundancy in here. A lot of the eye looks do look very, very similar to each other. I'm going to go ahead and do some swatches for you. We're going to do this first row here, then this row, then this row. And you guys know that I do the swatches on my hand and then get super close to the camera for you so that you could see what is going on. So the first color is this one. It is called Vanilla Wafers. It is just a really, you know, nice matte beige shade. It's not quite white, but this is a really good shade to like lay down on your eye look as a base over the top of that primer. It's also really good to put into your brow bone as that lightest shade in your eye look. The next one is this one, and it is called Cookie Cutter. It is a shimmer peach. It's just really super, super pretty. The next one is this one, and it is, you saw that swatched super good. Let me do that again. This one is called Soft and Sweet. I think this one's a bit of a satin. However, it is a matte dusty rose is what I would call it, and what it is, I don't know what the website really calls it, because like I said, it's not for sale anymore, so I had a hard time finding information on it. But I would say Dusty Rose is probably what it more than not resembles. Then we have this shade here, which also doesn't swatch well, so we're going to do that again. And this one is called For the Gram. It is a matte like orange brown. This one does have glitter, but it's not glittery enough that it can be called a shimmer, so I'm not sure where that 8th shimmer comes in. Then we have this one, which is called In a Pinch, and it is a matte dark peach. And then we have this one, which is called Drizzle It, and it is a shimmer like rusty copper color. This one is more loose in the pan than the other shimmers, and it actually applies really well on the eyes. That cookie cutter shade really applies very nicely on the eyes too. Next we have this one, which is called Lick the Spoon. It is a shimmer that is a light peach. Again, it is kind of a different light peach though. It's got a little bit more golden as well. Then we have this one here, which is a spicy mammy. It is a shimmer deep copper. It's a little more satiny. My suggestion is to apply that one wet. Even though wet doesn't help it out entirely, it does apply better wet. It also is really, really bad about showing like any kind of texture on the eyes. You're not going to be able to hide it if this is on that textured area of your eye. Then we have this one here. This one is called Extra Spicy. It is a deep orange matte. And then we have this one here, which is called Half Baked. And it is a more of a, I guess, yellowy copper, really reddy toned copper. And it is a shimmer. Then we have this one, which is called Butterscotch, and this is probably one of my favorites in the palette. It was a really pretty, like, just like orangey, yellow, mustardy color. I really quite enjoyed that in a lot of eye looks to like blend out. And then there is this one, which is called Cookie Call, and it is a matte dark brown, and I use that quite a bit this week. It is what is in my crease and my outer V today. It can be really sheared out to be a beautiful lighter brown, and especially when mixed with Gingerbread Glam, which is another light brown that you're going to see in the next row of shades. Especially when paired with that, it did really well. All of the shimmers in this row, so row 2, I had a lot of problems with. This one shows texture a lot. This one shows texture a lot. Performs more like a satin than it does a shimmer. This one gets all croupy crepey no matter if you have texture or not, and you'll see that kind of up in the section at the top if you look closely when I get close up with these. I didn't have much luck with any of the shimmers in this row, but I did like all of the mattes in this row. I thought that the dark orange was a really nice deepening color to any of my eye looks, and it blended really well. I don't feel like the dark brown blended very well, but I do feel like it was a great deepening up color, and it did sheer out really well. So even if it didn't blend super well, it sheared out super well, and I could make it work because I did in the eye look that I have in today by just bringing in like Gingerbread Glam as well. And then this Butterscotch shade was my favorite for really blending out any other shade in the palette because of the orange warm nature of it. That yellow just brought a whole nother element into any eye look. Third and final row, we have this one here, which is called Plenty of Dough, and it is just a matte peachy tone. It also worked well for like putting over the top of the primer. Using it to blend out some of your oranges, it really helped with that. I really did like this one. However, it fell out like no other. And then there is this one here. I would say that of the shimmers, this one had the worst fallout. It is what's all over my lid today. It did cause a little bit of irritation on the inner corner of this eye because it did fall out a hell of a lot as well, and it did get into the inner corner here, and man, my eye was burning. But this is like a shimmer gold. It's got a really textured application to it. I don't feel like going in wet or dry helps out the application of this shade. Then there is this one here, which is called Gingerbread Glam, and this is one that I used to help out with the patchiness of the darker brown in the last row, that Cookie Call. I used it today in the crease and the outer corner because I was trying to use that Cookie Call. It just wasn't blending for me, so I used this one, Gingerbread Glam, to kind of help me get it blendable without being patchy, and it really does help out that brown. It's just dark enough that it can blend into it, but just light enough that it doesn't cause a lot of color change to it. Then there is this color, which is probably the worst one in the palette. I don't know if you guys can see, that swatch is horrible, but it is Hot Tamale, and it is the kind of pinky red one in the palette, and it was one that I had really high hopes for because I love that tone on my eyes. I love oranges and like pinks on my eyes, and I went into the crease with that color, and to my dismay it kind of sheared out. So then I put more into it and then tried to blend it, and it sheared out. So then I put more in. I just felt like I was packing, and unless I left it packed and not even tried to blend anything into it, it didn't stay. There was no color, there was no pigmentation to it. It just sheared out, and you guys can tell by the swatch, it's horrible. I can take put another swatch on top of it, and even then you can see it still is like super patchy. I don't know, I just wish it was a better color. It would have made my day. It would have been my favorite in the palette. Probably almost every eye look that you saw would have that color in it because I just really loved it, but I couldn't get it to work for me. So that is a matte berry. Then we have these two here. This one is called Cinnamon, and that's what it looks like. It's kind of like a berry toned brown. It also is a really nice color. I used it a lot in conjunction with this one to try and get them to blend better, try to get this one to be more pigmented. It didn't help a whole lot. This one was truly a shitty shade, but this one wasn't a bad shade. This one was actually a very good shade. And then we have this one here, which is called Midnight Snack, and you guys can see the like blue tealness of that shade, but it's got a black base, and I have to be honest, it was pretty worthless for it to be in the palette. I have many of these black based blue green eyeshadows that work so much better than this one. I did start an eye look with this color thinking it was going to be amazing. I had high hopes for it. I took a picture halfway through because I wasn't going to finish. I took it off my eyes. It just looked black. It just looked black. There was no, the glitter didn't stick. It didn't stay on the eye with the shade. I don't know, maybe if you had like a glitter glue that you were putting it on top of, and maybe if you just used your finger and tapped it on top, it would be different. But I tried using my finger and tap on top the glitter of the shadow, and it didn't work, and that was before I took the picture of the eye look. I'll go ahead and stick it in here so you guys can see it. It was just not good. It wasn't good. It's a pretty worthless color to have in this palette. These are the shades in that last row. This is probably my least favorite row in the palette. I used the colors in this row more as, you know, helpers, I guess, than anything else, because they were all pretty dismal on their own. If I wanted this shade here to have a little more berry to it, I would add this shade to the brush and kind of go back and forth, and it would become a more berry toned pink. And if I wanted something to be a little blacker than what it was, I would go ahead and add this, because that blue, green, teal glitter didn't really stick. This metallic here, or shimmer here, was just so much texture is what you see in that. And it's funny because it is on my eye look today. It is in my inner corner, is the color that I chose to put on the inner parts of my eye look, because I knew that this orange red one that I had put in kind of the center was a texture application. I think that the gold one that I just went over with you is worse as far as texture application goes. This Hot Tamale, like I said, could have been my favorite. I will say that this one also is the only matte in the palette that felt really kind of grippy to the touch. It wasn't as silky smooth as the other shadows are. Truth be told, I wasn't going to pick up this palette. I think the only reason why I did pick up, I know the only reason why I did pick up this palette is because my adult daughter talked me into it when we were at TJ Maxx and we saw it. So that's the only reason why I picked it up. I don't even know why I paid for it at that point. It's not my favorite. Too Faced, I have learned some things about myself along the way, right? And Tarte, not my favorite eyeshadow formula. Too Faced, also not my favorite eyeshadow formula. I think Too Faced does shimmers well. Their mattes are always super powdery and no pigmentation to them. They sheer out more so than not. And these are no different. They really aren't. And again, there's just not a whole lot of versatility in this palette. It's very redundant in its shades. If you're into that warm formula, I am. Honestly, I really like pinks and oranges on my eyes. But I will say this is not my favorite palette. Will I keep it in my collection? Yes. Maybe. You know, I don't know. I might see if my daughter likes it. I might see if my sister likes it. I don't know. I don't know if I'll keep it in my collection. It's not something that I ever see myself pulling for again, to be honest. It just doesn't rank up there with, yes, I have to have it, but it also doesn't rank up down there with absolutely not. I can't ever see me touching this palette again. So I'm going to go ahead and throw it in my maybe pile. Do I have a maybe pile? I don't know that I have a maybe pile, but I'm going to go ahead and throw it in my maybe pile. I'm going to find my phone and then we're going to pull for another palette for next week. Okay, I found my phone. For those of you who are new, I have a Samsung Note 9. I do use an app that I picked up in our Play Store. It is called the Decide Now app, and this is what it looks like. It's just a Wheel of Fortune app. You can pick this up in any of your app stores, Play Stores. It's just a decision wheel. So what I do with it is as I get new palettes in, I put my palettes into it as we use them, or I decide to declutter them, I pull them out of the wheel. It should stay updated at all times. I don't put new palettes into here until I have hauled them with y'all. And to spin it, we just spin it. And I have the Morphe Jaclyn Hill, and it is the Ring the Alarm palette, right? Will that show you what the dots are? It won't. It was the Morphe Jaclyn Hill Ring the Alarm, one of her Vault palettes. I'm going to go get that. I will be right back. Okay, this is the new palette that we will be using. A lot of people have a lot of, you know, things to say about the Vault by Jaclyn Hill. This is what the palette looks like. It kind of is super reminiscent of the palette that we just finished. So that's disappointing, but I've never used it before. I see a lot more shimmers that I think will be fun to play with. I also see a lot more a lot more denser color story in this, like this really deep, like kind of plummy red. I don't know. I think I'm going to have fun with this. I'm super excited to try it. I might also take some of my singles with me just because, like, this is a color story I feel like we've done over and over and over again for the last several weeks. So there's that. I know that that's not quite true. But I feel like we just got done with these colors. Any other Jaclyn Hill palette. But this is the one I'll be using next week. I hope that you guys want to stick around and see what my thoughts are on this palette next week. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. Hopefully you liked this video, and if you did, you're considering giving it a big thumbs up. I hope that you also liked it or liked me enough that you're also considering joining my channel, like subscribing and becoming a part of my YouTube fam here, and you're hitting that bell so you're here every single time I upload. I do upload every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and every other Sunday, right? Yes. The Sunday thing is new, so it's hard for me to remember. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. What palette are you using in your palette roulette? I would be interested to know. And until next time, guys, bye. I used this year for Too Faced. The inner corner is an Ofra highlight. The inner corner. Why am I so washed out?